At Bucco Banter, we're slowly spinning for you.
Live from Studio 3, and then heavily edited for content, it's Bucco Banter. Introducing your hosts, originally from somewhere near Newcastle and now being a good husband and father when he's not running off by himself to PNC Park, it's Fred Rossano. A Pittsburgh Pirates fan since before he was born and still residing in his parents' basement when he's not sleeping in the Pirates clubhouse, it's Matthew Peaslee. Finally, he may look like a piece of plastic on a stick, but he has a life of his own, and he's the real expert on Bucco Banter. It's Pirate Panda!
Welcome back. It's Season 2 of Bucco Banter, and we're pleased to bring you again our co-hosts for this year, Fred Rossano and Matthew Peaslee.
Welcome back to Bucco Banter. My name's Matthew Peaslee, and joined, as always,
Fred Rossano.
Fred Rossano. We're about a quarter of the way through the season.
Already.
May's almost over, and we're starting to see how the picture of the season is going to come into focus, and the Pirates are right around 500. Sometimes, they got swept by the Cardinals. They lost four games in a row, but they don't seem to be sinking too fast.
Consistently inconsistent.
Right.
So
there's been some bright spots. There's been some dark spots. I think the hitting and the pitching have both been inconsistent, but I guess you could start off by telling us about the hitting so far.
The hitting, again, it doesn't seem like they can get anything going as far as the runners that they've left in scoring position. I think we talked about that before. They broke a record, the one that went back 40 years, or was from 1940. But overall, the hitting has been very sporadic. They seem to get hits in bunches, but they don't seem to get them when they need to get them. Two or three guys in a row. They'll have one guy at the top of the lineup gets 3 hits, somebody down lower gets 3 hits, but in between they'll go 3 or 4 guys will go 0 for 4. Just going around from first base, Alvarez, he's been typical. I'm starting to lose my confidence in him, whatever it is. And I know that guys like Neil Walker say this guy works the hardest. I don't know what the problem is there. But if he isn't going to field that well, he needs to start hitting.
And he's not hitting.
And he's had 1 home run in like the last month, I think. But second base, even Neil Walker, okay, not spectacular, not great. Shortstop, they've had Mercer and Gong, and right now Gong's sort of taken over for him. I don't know how long that'll last, probably until Gong goes into some what sort of a hitting slump. But third base, another disappointment. Josh Harrison, he seems to have come out of it a little bit, but overall not what we expected. He seems to be, some of the pitches he seems to be missing, like he's like lost up there. Maybe he's trying too hard because of the contract. I don't know.
There's a good article today in one of the papers, and it says that he realized what he was doing wrong, and he's waiting on pitches more. He's waiting to see what it is, and
you would think that would come. You would see that with all the technology they have. If somebody along the line would say that.
Yeah, but I think
I hope he has found what he's has been doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Cervelli, catching wise, he's been improving a little bit. Hitting wise, he's been improving, and knock on wood that he continues to stay healthy. That's been his big bugaboo. I'd give him a passing grade so far. Bugaboo. Starling Marte, I think he's probably been the most, I don't want to say pleasant surprise, but he's been the most consistent. Yeah. He's had
and lived up to the expectations because
coming from the end of last year. Center field, McCutcheon hasn't been what he's expected to be. He seems to be coming out of it a little bit too, hopefully. But so far, not what you expect from almost a two-time MVP. And then you have Gregory Polanco, who's another one who's been okay at times and then goes into these really bad slumps of striking out and just looking lost at the plate again. And I don't know whose fault that is. I mean, he gets a pass because he's still 22, 23 years old.
He's the youngest guy on the team still.
Yeah, and so he gets somewhat of a pass. And I don't know how you juggle, maybe some of these guys. Maybe you put Josh Harrison out there and right. Although his fielding has been kind of erratic too.
He leads the team in errors at third. Yeah. So.
As far as the bench now, Sean Rodriguez has been really good.
Yeah.
Corey Hart has been good as far as pinch hitting. The rest, he's just been terrible, and he's been terrible. I don't think he has the legs to play the outfield, definitely, and maybe a little bit at first. But that one play in the game they lost,
was that against the Cardinals or the Phillies?
But he couldn't
get over the line and get it.
I mean, that was a ball that has to be caught, and he just let it drop in, and that was the end of the game. I'm trying to think of who else they have on the bench here.
But backup catcher Chris Stewart.
No, well, he is what he is. I mean, he's been pretty good when he's been in there.
Defensively.
And he's played good defensively. Lambo, he was 1 for 25 before he came up with his whatever foot injury. So he's down. And one of my favorites is Tabata is back up. So we'll see how he does for the third, fourth, fifth time or whatever. And I don't know what happened with him either, but hopefully he'll maybe put a little spark into the team as they go forward.
Yeah, they may not put him. He's not going to be thrust into a starting role right away, and you just hope that he can deliver on pinch hit opportunities. Unlike Corey Hart's the only guy that has pinch hit.
He has, what is it, six?
Six for like 41 is the entire team, and Corey Hart's got all 6 hits. But when he's in there starting at first or right field, he can't come through. He's striking out 3 times a game. Just looks lost. So that's why hopefully Tabata comes up to pace him and the bench. Yeah.
What do you got as far as the pitching?
Well, on our previous episodes, we've just been so complimentary of the starting pitching. And now it's kind of faded into 2 different classes of starting pitching. You got the Kings, which are Liriano, Burnett, and Cole. And then there's Vance Worley and Michael McElwain's love child, Jeff Locke. It's amazing how good Cole, Burnett, and Liriano have been, especially Cole and Burnett. Burnett's got the second lowest ERA in all of baseball, especially after last year, how he struggled in Philadelphia. He led the league.
Groin injury.
It could be. But I've heard that he's not as powerful as he was. Obviously, he is older now. But they said that he's just worked on his delivery a lot better. His mechanics are better than they've ever been. And he's been consistent all year long. And hopefully that stays with him.
I heard somewhere that a couple places or a couple people have said, or I've read too, that he just said he just threw everything out there. He said he was not going to hold back anything in any inning of any game or any pitch. Well, whether it was hitting, running the bases, he said he was just going to go full tilt no matter what happens. He said this is the last year.
And it's paying off. Yeah. This is shaping up to be one of his best years ever. And what did they say after they beat the Cubs and he earned the win on Sunday? 8 straight starts, I believe, since 1900.
Was it 9? I think it was. Was that the 8th or the 9th?
8 or 9th.
I think Bob Walk had the other.
So, but it was
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so it was like the best start of a season since 1900 for a Pirates pitcher, which is unreal.
I can't even barely remember that.
You were only like 5 back then.
Yeah, I took it away from you, so it doesn't count.
You were 8 years old at the first World Series.
It's too long. You waited too long.
Then back to Garrett Cole. He's really developing into the number 1 pick that they picked him as a couple years ago. He'll be the ace of the staff next year if Burnett does. If he does retire, which he says he is, but he's
maybe
who knows? He very well could come back with how good he's been pitching this year. And Liriano has been as reliable as ever too. I think he's improved a lot from last year and set. But then again, there's Vance Worley and Jeff Locke, who both have seemed to struggle in their starts. Jeff Locke on last Friday got shelled by the Cubs early on, but then the Pirates ended up coming back and almost winning that game.
Yep.
But he just built them a big hole that they couldn't dig out of. And then Vance Worley got shelled by the Phillies, his old team, on the road last week. One of them is going to be gone when Charlie Morton comes back from the disabled list. One of them will be demoted to the bullpen. Jeff Locke's not the all-star he was by any means, and Vance Worley doesn't seem to be the surprise that he was when he came back last year. Also with starting pitching, I mean, you got Casey Sadler in AAA who came up earlier in the year to make a spot start, but outside of that, there's really no arms waiting to come up. You got Jameson Taillon, who still hasn't pitched a game since his surgery, and Tyler Glasnow and Nick Kingham, who we talk about a lot. They're kind of banged up a little bit with early injuries in the minor league career, or minor league this season. So that's kind of the starting lineup we see now.
Nick Kingham, I think he might be out with Tommy John also. Yeah. They were supposed to be getting a second opinion from James Andrews.
It's always James Andrews.
But it's not good news.
Yeah, and with the way Morton looked against that in that opening series game, and I think he gave up 11 hits when he played for Indianapolis the other day. I don't know how strong he is going to be coming back.
I think he'll be okay. I just think that whatever he was supposed to find himself or whatever, whether how he was something with his delivery or whatever. I think
that's been the story of his whole career. It's always something with him, and I think he's a smart guy I think he
overanalyzes
but probably doesn't overanalyze himself. Also with pitching, the bullpen hasn't been as sharp as we wanted it to be. The new guys, Radimus Lees and Antonio Bastardo and Archimedes Caminero, are still shaky. Watson and Hughes still seem to be reliable.
I don't think Bastardo's had a 1-2-3 inning, even since he first came in spring training. I don't think he's had a 1-2-3 inning yet.
Yeah. Rob Scahill looks to be okay.
Yeah, he's pitched well.
Yeah, I think just in that first series he got banged up a little bit, but he's been surprisingly solid since then. And then there's Mark Melancon, who's still getting the job done.
Ooh,
barely.
He's been struggling every time.
But to compare with that, Jason Grilli in Atlanta, I think he had 6 or 7 straight saves to start the year. He's got over a 10 ERA now. Yeah. He's been getting crushed. Craig Kimbrell, they trade him to Braves, trade him to the Padres.
That too, where
he's slipping too. So everyone's just kind of waiting for Melancon to blow up, but
it's what Neil Huntington always says. It's a crapshoot every time when you get these guys, the relievers. I mean, one year they can, that's why I don't want to put a lot of money into your relievers, because you never know. It's like an unknown quantity going into every season.
And it's so tough to be a relief pitcher. You don't know when exactly you're coming in or how long you're going to stay for or what kind of situation you're going to inherit. It's a risky business being a relief pitcher. So if you get the job done, I don't want to say you're lucky, but you definitely earned it. Yeah. And Melancon is earning his saves, making it interesting, but still getting the job done, getting wins when he's in there, and that's all that matters.
Matt and Fred, it's time for a new segment on Bucco Banter called 3 for 3. And take it away, Matt. Hold your horses there. Simmer down there, Pirate Panda. I'm going to start off the 3 for 3 segment this time.
Oh, yeah.
My first one is time for a turnaround. Okay, we're a quarter of the way through the season. We've seen this before last year. It's time for them to start to win baseball games. This is a good baseball team here. Enough of the inconsistencies. They got to start putting together 4 or 5 game winning streaks at the very least, and avoid those sweeps and giving away games or whatever. But
they're still about the same record-wise, about the same position they were to start last year.
But it seems a lot different when you're chasing the Cardinals rather than chasing the Brewers.
Yeah. So time for a turnaround. Mine is first 3 for 3 is hitting them hard. They always say pitch them hard, hit them hard. I've been reading some stats, which you love. I know how you sit up at night just divulging
sleep
stats.
Through this next segment.
But people have been keeping track of how fast the ball comes out off the bat. And Starling Marte consistently hits it off the bat about 110 miles per hour.
Oh, I can understand that. That's a legitimate stat.
Okay,
that's a legitimate stat.
I just wanted your approval on that.
Yeah, you have my approval.
Okay. Even last week, When Andrew McCutchen hit that home run in Philadelphia, and Robbie of Root Sports asked him after the game, "Did you see this?" He said, some of your. He worded it weird, but it was actually a pretty good question.
Yeah, I thought it was too, but
he said, some of your outs are getting hit harder than your hits, and then Kutch says, except for that home run. But he made a good point because Andrew McCutchen and Starling Marte both hit it off the bat so hard, sharp line drive hits, which is obviously what you want to do. You're just going to need to find some holes. But I think they both averaged like 110 miles per hour off the bat.
That makes sense. That's one of the reasons why they did away with the aluminum bats, because the ball comes off, even if it's a tenth of a second, that's a tenth of a second less than you have to react, and on the pitcher's mound or third base or whatever it might be.
There's Jake Arrieta of the Cubs on Sunday. I forget who was hitting. He barely got his glove up there in time, but he could have got beheaded on that one. Yep. But yeah, it just comes off the bat so fast, and it's fun to watch that.
That's a legitimate stat. I'm not that.
Plenty more where that came from.
My second one is eating my words, and this is I wasn't so down on A.J. Burnett, and I don't think anybody expected that from him. But the one I was kind of, and not because it was anything in particular. I just thought he was, Young Ho Gong. I just didn't think he was. I thought he was going to get sent down, really. Not only because of him not being used to major league pitching, but just being used to being in America and all that. And I thought he was going to be, but he seems to have.
When he got his time to get some starts, he's hitting, and he was hitting more than almost any other starter.
Yep, that's why Mercer's on the bench.
My second one is the next Bonds, and the next Barry Bonds, is Starling Marte. Maybe a little bit early to put him at that career, but he's still young, and he's on pace this year for 30 stolen bases and 30 home runs, over 100 RBIs too. And that's what Barry Bonds was known for in his time as a Pirate, stolen bases and home runs. Who knows how big Marte is going to get. I don't think he's going to take any PEDs or anything like that, but the way he's been consistent this year and shown those glimpses of power, it's fun to watch, and I think he can be...
If he got down on the strikeouts and quit chasing some of those pitches or out of the strike zone.
He can be a type of maybe not an MVP, but he has been the Pirates MVP.
Yeah.
But he can be a Barry Bonds type player like Bonds was in the early '90s for the Pirates.
My last is Alvarez must produce, and it's just I've been a big proponent of Pedro since he first came up, and I think that he still has that potential, but it's starting to fade. It's just that same. I don't know whether they've done something with him. I heard somebody talk about it the other day in the 2013 playoffs against the Cardinals. They said you knew when Pedro Alvarez came up that you feared him, and that was he had just reached the point where you were fearing him.
Yeah.
Anybody, the opposing fans, the opposing team would say, it's Alvarez. We don't want to see him come up. So you would switch things around, maybe put another reliever in or something, and then that all just faded.
He's not as threatening anymore.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was the fielding wise that hurt his hitting, whether they tinkered with him about going the opposite field a little bit more and cut down on the strikeouts, so he had less home runs and better average. But it's all just seemed to have just. Even when he came back, when he was playing first base at the end of
last season.
Yeah, and I was at that game when he got hurt against the Cardinals. He was starting. Remember, he had like 2 or 3 home runs, and then within 5 games, and it looks like he was just starting to come, and then it went again.
And now he's barely hitting 200. Started off, he's still got 6 home runs.
And he'll hit 20, 25 home runs, but there isn't even that hot streak anymore.
No.
The hot streak is gone, where he'd hit like 6, 7 home runs within a 2 or 3 week span, and then cool down.
And you mentioned about going opposite field. I don't think he's done that much at all this year.
No,
he usually see a couple shots down the third base line, but he doesn't seem to get any sharp hits like that this year so far.
I don't know. Maybe the pitching's just caught up to him, and he hasn't adjusted to it, or what it might be. But this just seems weird that he's gone from one extreme to the other. I mean, he was always inconsistent, but now the highs are a lot less than the highs were before.
Yeah. My last one goes back a little bit before my time. What's up, Doc? as in Doc Ellis, not Doc Cardboard. There's a new documentary out about Doc Ellis and his no-hitter on drugs. And I've heard that story a lot.
No, he freely admitted
and
it.
he admitted it. That wasn't even the first time he did drugs during a game. He said he was always high when he was pitching. And it's a documentary that interviews him when he was still alive. And they interview Steve Blass, who's always a great storyteller. They interview your buddy Bob Smizik. They interview a lot of guys about Doc Ellis's career. And it was an interesting look into the 1970s Pirates and just how cool they were. They said Muhammad Ali went into the Pirates clubhouse just to hang out. Doc Ellis was good friends with Muhammad Ali. But it's a Dune documentary, about an hour and a half long. I highly recommend it. It enlightened me about baseball in the 70s and just a cool look into the Pirates.
Little known fact, the movie Gung Ho with Michael Keaton was filmed down in Shadyside, Ohio, right off a factory and right off of Route 7. Doc Ellis was in that.
They mentioned that in the movie, that he's like playing catch and he's pitching to the...
Which was a very funny movie. Doc Ellis was one of those weird guys. I remember seeing something on TV there where he was the greatest roommate or teammate that you could ever want. They said he was just so eccentric. Remember, I don't know if you remember when he showed up at one of the games with curlers.
That's what they talk about that in the documentary.
And the guy said, "You can't get in here." The guy just wouldn't let him in. He said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I pitch for the Pirates." "No, you don't. You can't get in. You don't have any identification." He goes, "No, I don't."
He always had fun and tried to push the boundaries. Almost like a more lovable Niger Morgan. Or Niger Morgan.
Then he went down. I started hating.
Niger Morgan played in Korea. He played in the KBO, the same league that Jung Ho came from. He was in the KBO to start this year, and the team released him because he was such a jerk and an idiot.
He did change. We will be back with the return of an old segment.
Yeah, Fred, I heard that there's a return of an old segment, and I've also heard from thousands of people that are interested. Literally thousands. Interested in Bucco Banter, writing in their questions. That's what I have up my sleeve. Questions for Ask the Experts.
Oh! Wardrobe! And we're back. Look, these... I don't know. This makes me feel so much smarter.
It makes you look so much
smarter.
Dumber. Yeah, smarter. So we have 4 questions, 2 for you, 2 for me.
All right.
I will read you number 1. Question number 1. Will the Pirates make a trade in the next month? If so, who will it be? Sent in by Buzzy of Irondale.
Well, Buzzy, that's a good question because we're still way ahead of the trading deadline. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they need to really trade for anybody right now. But if, depending on how it unfolds there, hitting wise, I still think they'll come around. Pitching wise, I could see them maybe trying to go for a middle reliever.
Well, it was early in the year when they acquired Ike Davis, too. So a trade like this isn't uncommon. Here's a thought what they might be doing. Okay, they recently recalled Jose Tabata. Maybe they're trying to shop him and to get some...
Oh, they're always trying to...
Well, right.
They've been honest. They've always been trying to trade Tabata.
So they bring him up. Maybe he gets a couple hits here and there. Trade him for a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher. So if there was one player to be traded in the next month or two, I'll say it's Jose Tabata.
Could be. Like I said, I don't think they're looking for anybody in particular hitting-wise, but... I think they might be looking for somebody in middle relievers somewhere in there. Let me give you your question.
Yes, sir.
The question is, do you get stronger by pitching or do you get stronger by being careful how much you pitch? By Goose of Toronto.
Well, Goose...
Good question, Goose.
I guess here's my thoughts on that one, and it kind of goes back to A.J. Burnett. We say that he's not throwing... as powerful as he was. If he was throwing hard each time out, trying to hit 98 miles per hour or something like that, he probably would be getting hurt because he is older. And I think the way he's using his efficient windups is saving him. So I think he's watching himself throwing wise and getting stronger just by pitching, not trying to throw stronger. But if we're talking about a pitcher coming off an injury, like Jameson Taillon. I think last week he threw off a mound for the first time. He's going to get stronger just by pitching. He's not going to be throwing hard. He's going to be getting stronger just by getting out there and pitching, whether that's off a mound, in a simulated game. It's going to take him a while before he sees live hitting. But I think
they say a lot of these guys come back stronger after they've had the surgery. You know what? How do you know? I remember asking this to Steve Blass once, and he said, "Who knows?"
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on the individual of whether you can build up your arm strength by pitching, or build up your arm strength by not pitching too much or whatever.
And these guys have been doing it since they were 8 years old throwing.
If Burnett, look, he's 38 years old, and obviously, he's weathered the storm through all those years. And a guy like Taillon, they were so careful with him, and it was the exact opposite.
And Steven Strasburg now for the Nationals, he's fallen completely off, and he got shut down before the playoffs every year when he first came up. And
that really hasn't. I mean, he's still a good pitcher, no doubt, but he still isn't the pitcher when he first was drafted that they thought it was going to be. Yeah. And, it could have gone to the Pirates, really, along with Bryce Harper those couple of years in a row.
Here's
you know
another
what?
question.
I do. I can feel like brain cells. I mean, it's so much better than these stupid prison hats.
You should wear this at your desk as you're working.
That's debatable there.
When Charlie Morton comes back, who should go to the bullpen? Sent in by Randy of Burgettstown, PA.
Well, Randy, I think that one's still a toss-up, the same as it was at the beginning of the year. Whether it should be
Locke or
Worley, and I don't know which one right now. They've both been pitching pretty badly. I think it'll probably be Worley again, because I don't think Locke is much able to keep his I would say consistent inconsistency. He's not as able to go into the bullpen as much as Worley, and I think that'll. But who's going to get knocked out when he goes to the bullpen, though? That's the other question.
I thought it would be Wilfredo Boscan, who they brought up, but now they sent him down to bring up Tabata. It could be Bastardo or Lees or.
Well, if it's Bastardo, then he'll just be cut. Then
it's going to be whoever has options. Maybe they'll end up cutting.
Does Locke still have an option?
I don't. I'm not sure. But maybe they'll end up cutting a bench player like a Corey Hart or somebody.
Yeah, I think they like Corey Hart as a pinch hitter. And when you look at the guys they had last year, the bench is still 1,000% better than it was last year.
Yeah, and Travis Snyder was kind of that guy who we thought could be a big impact on the team this year, but he's obviously there in Baltimore, and who knows what the team would look like if we had him to spell Polanco and Wright, or still have Travis Snyder off the bench.
I don't know if those guys like Liz or whatever can be sent down or not.
Yeah, and maybe that's why originally they kept one of those guys instead of John Holtzcomb. John Holtzcomb, they shut him down.
Now he's hurt too now. All right, the final question of today.
Mike is telling us to slow down, so we better read this slowly.
What do you do with Pedro, Jody of Stratton?
It seems like we've gotten this question 4 times last year, 3 times already this year. You still got to play him. I think it's again. He can't hit off lefties. With the Pirates, the Pirates haven't faced left-handed pitching that much.
How do you know that again?
We haven't.
This thing of you either have to hit against lefties, or you can't be a left-handed power hitter and be a star in the major leagues unless you bat against righties and lefties.
Okay, but then why is Neil Walker a switch hitter?
Okay, and then walk because he's a switch hitter.
But Pedro Alvarez isn't a switch hitter.
And that makes no sense.
He obviously I don't think he's gotten like 1 hit off of left-handed pitching this year, and they faced at least.
That's because he doesn't. Okay,
but he's got at least 20 at bats.
They've only faced they won guys pitched against him 3 times.
And he's got at least 20 at bats against left-handed pitching, and only has like 1 hit.
That's because they haven't faced it. Like the other night, they took him out against John Lester. Mm-hmm. Just throw him out there. I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah, but if they want to play a percentage, if Corey Hart hits them, but again, right, that's Corey Hart hasn't played much against left-handed.
When the Pirates got Andy Van Slyke way back when, they said, he can't hit left-handed pitching. He can't. He's going to have to be sit the bench when he's left. And they said, Let's just go and try it. And he wound up being a pretty good hitter against left-handed pitching.
No.
Same was okay, I'll give you this for Walker when he came up 2 years ago. Remember how bad he was again batting right-handed.
Yeah. When he would bat right-handed.
Last year, he was good. Now this year again, he's not doing so well against.
Pedro can't hit any pitching so far right now. Except he can hit during the day. I think he's got like a 300 batting average during the day.
He can do. He's
5 of his 6 home runs are during the day. So that's what you do.
He's an enigma. He's the perfect enigma because you don't know what to do. By the time the 2017 season rolls around, that's his last year, right?
And are you going to want to pay him to stay on, or do you want to?
That's why they want him to do well. So they do want to trade. And there's nothing against the guy. I mean, like I said, I've rooted for him all the time.
And he could fit in well in the American League, so he doesn't. But he can't hit. You're not going to want that as a designated hitter, but it might help him.
Okay, you have a designated hitter. You're going to put a designated hitter on the bench when he's batting against left-handers?
In Pedro Alvarez? Or I'm
saying if Pedro's in the American League, are you going to want to have a designated hitter? Well, I guess you.
I'm sure they do. They do that. But again, if Pedro can't deliver, maybe you give that to Sean Rodriguez, who's proven that he can perform when needed. He's been like Pedro Alvarez's caddy at first base. Sean Rodriguez comes in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning to spell Pedro anyway.
I've always felt
so. Start him out there at first base a couple games and see what he can do in the starting lineup.
I've just always felt bad for Pedro. I don't know. He just seems to be one of those guys. His mannerisms seem to dictate. People think what kind of a guy he is. And I know when Neil Walker said there isn't a guy on this team that works harder than Pedro Alvarez to improve himself.
Well, they're two different guys. Pedro doesn't like to talk. Neil likes to talk, and Neil's a very media savvy guy who's likable. Even when Neil Walker goes through struggles, there's still players. There's still people that say, "Well, Neil Walker's trying hard because he's a good guy," and people don't get that from Pedro. But even though he is working,
well, what's happening right now. Our director is yawning.
We put him to sleep.
He's not yawning. He's yawning. So,
but we do know there's thousands of you watching who want us to talk for at least another hour.
But that wraps up this episode of Bucco Banter.
We'll see you in about a month.
No, we won't. Okay. You'll see us in a couple weeks.
Good.
See you then. To pose a question for Ask the Experts, send a self-addressed stamped envelope. No, that can't be right. You need to email it to ask@buccobanter.com. That's BUCCOBANTER.com. And maybe we will answer it in a future episode. If we do, you could get a special mug.
When he's in there, and that's all that matters.
This concludes this segment on... We'll be right back. Do we want to
Yeah, just fade out. Just fade that out. What? Just fade it out. We end it. As soon as we stop talking, just fade it out.
Oh no.
I think I have spittle here.
What?
You gotta get the mug.
Get the mug. We haven't done.
We did that already.
No, we didn't.
We're going to do the whole.
This is
thing.
live.
Okay.
We'll show you how far to go up with the mug and where to go.
You want me to do that?
Remember
Okay.
now?
You know what? You don't need to yell at him. He's part of the talent on this show.
I don't need you to stand up for me.
3, 2,